Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to my channel. Welcome, friends, to our video dedicated to Fouad Ajami. Let's dive right in and uncover its wonders. Fouad Ajami, September 18, 1945 June 22, 2014 was a Lebanese-born American university professor and writer on Middle Eastern issues. He was a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. Ajami was an outspoken supporter of the Bush Doctrine and the 2003 invasion of Iraq, which he believed to have been a noble war and a gift to the people of Iraq. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of early life and education and their profound significance. Ajami was born in Amman, a rocky hamlet in the south of Lebanon, into a Shia Muslim family. His Shia great-grandfather had immigrated to Amman from Tabriz, Iran in the Urs. In Arabic, the word Ajam means non-Arab or non-Arabic speaker. Specifically in this context, it means Persian or Persian speaker. Ajami arrived in the United States in the fall of 1963, just before he turned 18. He did some of his undergraduate work at Eastern Oregon State College, now Eastern Oregon University in La Grande, Oregon. He did his graduate work at the University of Washington, where he wrote his thesis on international relations and world government, and earned a Ph.D. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into academia and analyzing its key components. In 1973, Ajami joined the politics department of Princeton University. He made a name for himself there as a vocal supporter of Palestinian self-determination. In 1980, the School of Advanced International Studies of Johns Hopkins University named him Director of Middle East Studies. He joined the Hoover Institution in 2011. Let's transition to government and uncover its significance. Ajami was an advisor to United States Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, as well as a friend and colleague of Paul Wolfowitz. In the next portion, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of journalism and examining its broader implications. Ajami was a frequent contributor on Middle Eastern issues and contemporary international history to the New York Times Book Review, Foreign Affairs, The New Republic, The Wall Street Journal, as well as other journals and periodicals. He was also a contributor and close friend to Anderson Cooper of CNN. He was also a frequent guest on Fox News Channel's America's News Headquarters WMPMRJ. In this section, we'll be shedding light on television and its impact on our understanding of the subject. Ajami frequently appeared on PBS, CBS, CNN, and Fox News. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of links to terrorism and explore its various aspects. On 16 February 1984, two agents of the Israeli Shin Bet, acting on orders from Mayor Dagan and working as members of the Terrorist Front for the Liberation of Lebanon from Foreigners, a front organization for the Israel Defense Forces, assassinated Lebanese Shia cleric Ragab Harb. Hussein Abbas, one of the assassins, was a nephew of Ajami, and after the assassination he fled to America, where he lived in the home of his uncle. Danny Abdallah, a Lebanese criminal living in Denmark, admitted to having killed Harb on behalf of the Israelis, and also claimed to have participated in the kidnapping of Harb's successor, Abdul Karim Obaid. As a result, Hezbollah put him on their death list, and he was wanted in Lebanon. Brace yourself for a deep dive into books as we explore its impact and relevance in our evolving narrative. In The Fate of Non-Alignment, an essay in the winter issue of the journal Foreign Affairs, Ajami outlined how the Third World has fared in a context of non-alignment in post-Cold War politics. In 1980, he accepted an offer from Johns Hopkins University to become Director of Middle East Studies at their International Relations graduate program in Washington, D.C., the Paul H. Nitze School of Advanced International Studies SAIS. He holds an endowed chair as the Majid Qadri Professor. A year after arriving at SAIS, Ajami published his first book, The Arab Predicament, which analyzed what Ajami described as an intellectual and political crisis that swept the Arab world following its defeat by Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War. Subsequently, Ajami has written several other books: The Dream Palace of the Arabs, A Generation's Odyssey 1998, Beirut, City of Regrets 1988, and The Vanished Imam, Musa al-Sadr and the Shia of Lebanon 1986. In The Dream Palace of the Arabs, A Generation's Odyssey, Ajami surveyed the intellectual landscape in the Arab world and Iran, in what was in some ways an autobiography as well as a sequel to the Arab predicament. On Middle Eastern politics, he wrote of a world where triumph rarely comes with mercy or moderation. On Pan-Arabism, he described the ideology as Sunni dominion dressed in secular garb. Ajami's book The Foreigner's Gift, The Americans, the Arabs and the Iraqis in Iraq 2006, is about the American invasion of Iraq. Crosswinds, The Way of Saudi Arabia 2020, was published posthumously by the Hoover Institute. In the next portion, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of view of Huntington's Clash of Civilizations and examining its broader implications. One notable contribution Ajami made in the September-October 1993 issue of Foreign Affairs was a rebuttal to Samuel Huntington's The Clash of Civilizations. Regarding the state and future of international relations after the Cold War. According to Judith Miller, Ajami continued to argue that militant Islamism of the type represented by Al-Qaeda had peaked and was fading into insignificance. Huntington presents a world divided at the highest level into 8 civilizations, and includes a number of countries that are torn between 2 civilizations, arguing that these civilizational divides are far more fundamental than economic interests, ideology, and regimes, and that the world is becoming a smaller place with increasingly close interactions. He further claims that the preeminence of a so-called kin-country syndrome will provide a civilizational rallying point that will replace political ideology and traditional balance of power considerations for relations between states and nations, resulting in a division between the West and the rest, creating a backlash against Western values which supposedly differ fundamentally from those prevalent in other civilizations. In his article The Summoning, Ajami criticizes Huntington for ignoring the empirical complexities and state interests which drive conflicts in and between civilizations. Ajami believes that states will remain the dominant factor influencing the global framework and interaction. He also argues that civilizational ties are only utilized by states and groups when it is in their best interest to do so, and that modernity and secularism are here to stay, especially in places with considerable struggles to obtain them, and he cites the example of the Indian middle class. Ajami also believes that civilizations do not control states, rather, states control civilizations. Ajami later relented on his initial criticism of Huntington's theories in the January 6, 2008 issue of the New York Times Book Review in an article titled The Clash, in which he wrote that Huntington's thesis about a civilizational clash seems more compelling to me than the critique I provided at that time. Turning our focus to support for Iraq War, let's explore its key elements. Ajami was an outspoken supporter of the Iraq War, which he believed issued out of a deep American frustration with the culture of terrorism that had put down roots in Arab lands. In an August 2002 speech before the Veterans of Foreign Wars, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney sought to assuage concerns about the anticipated U.S. invasion of Iraq, stating, "As for the reaction of the Arab Street, the Middle East expert Professor Fouad Ajami predicts that after liberation, the streets in Basra and Baghdad are sure to erupt in joy in the same way the throngs in Kabul greeted the Americans." Ajami cautioned the United States about the likely negative consequences of the Iraq War. In a 2003 essay in Foreign Affairs, Iraq and the Arabs' Future, Ajami wrote, "There should be no illusions about the sort of Arab landscape that America is destined to find if, or when, it embarks on a war against the Iraqi regime. There would be no hearts and minds to be won in the Arab world, no public diplomacy that would convince the overwhelming majority of Arabs that this war would be a just war. An American expedition in the wake of thwarted UN inspections would be seen by the vast majority of Arabs as an imperial reach into their world, a favor to Israel, or a way for the United States to secure control over Iraq's oil. No hearing would be given to the great foreign power. But he also goes on to say, America ought to be able to live with this distrust and discount a good deal of this anti-Americanism as the road rage of a thwarted Arab world, the congenital condition of a culture yet to take full responsibility for its self-inflicted wounds. There is no need to pay excessive deference to the political pieties and givens of the region. Indeed, this is one of those settings where reforming foreign powers' simpler guidelines offer a better way than the region's age-old prohibitions and defects. Ajami retained a positive view of the war 3 years later. In a 2006 book on the invasion and its aftermath, he described it as a noble effort and argued that despite many unhappy consequences, it was too soon to write it off as a failure. Vice President Cheney cited Ajami again in an October 21, 2007 speech to the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, stating, "We have no illusions about the road ahead." As Fouad Ajami said recently, Iraq is not yet a country at peace, and all its forays have not burned out, but a measure of order has begun to stick on the ground. 8 days after US President Barack Obama took office, a Wall Street Journal op-ed piece by Ajami called Obama a messenger of the old, settled ways, claimed that the George W. Bush administration's diplomacy had had revolutionary impact, and chided Obama for not praising the Iraq War. Ajami credited the Egyptian Revolution and Tunisian Revolution to the Iraq War and Bush's advocacy of democracy. He also stated, however, that in June 2011, Ajami wrote an article for the New Republic arguing that the US troops should remain in Iraq, writing that the United States will have to be prepared for and accept the losses and adversity that are an integral part of staying on, rightly, in so tangled and difficult a setting. On June 13, 2011, he wrote in the Wall Street Journal about the unrest in Syria that the mask of the Assad regime finally falls. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of death in this section. On June 22, 2014, Ajami died from prostate cancer at a summer home in Maine, aged 68. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting awards and exploring its implications in greater detail. Ajami was a 1982 winner of a 5-year MacArthur Prize Fellowship in the Arts and Sciences. In 2006, he was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Bush and the Bradley Prize, and in 2011 he earned the Benjamin Franklin Award for Public Service and the Eric Brindle Award for Excellence in Opinion Journalism. Without further ado, let's move on to the topic of memberships. Ajami was a member of the Board of Directors of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Board of Advisors of the Journal Foreign Affairs. Ajami was a founding member of ASME, the Association for the Study of the Middle East and Africa, and was vice chairman of its academic council. Ajami also sat on the editorial board of Middle East Quarterly, a publication of the Middle East Forum think tank. He was a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution and the co-chair of their working group on Islamism and the International Order. Don't forget to check out my other videos for more valuable content.